So when I was growing up, I came from a suburb outside Boston, but my family used to go on family vacations to the American Southwest. And so we would hike around in the national parks, but I was always really interested in the tribal nations, the Native Americans that lived in the area, and their culture and history, and the differences between how life was on a reservation versus elsewhere in the United States. And so that original interest is what propelled me when I started studying the Middle East. And so when I was thinking about topics for my dissertation, I wanted to dive full on into that topic and look at how it is that tribal politics and family politics makes a difference in the way that societies work. And so for that question, the Gulf is a perfect area because you have tribal groups, you have historic merchant families, you have royal families, and all of these groups are interacting in really fascinating ways. So to be able to study that particular region was a natural fit for my research interests. And on top of that, you have really in-depth archival work and really good documentation of how these societies came to exist in the way that they did. And of course, you also have very friendly and open and warm people in the region who are really willing to talk to you and to share their lives with you. So I wasn't just reading about marriage ceremonies or diwaniyas. I was actually going to those ceremonies and going to those diwaniyas thanks to the hospitality of the people in the region. So I would say that studying in the Arab Gulf has definitely affected my future plans, mostly because when I went to the region, it was the first time I'd spent significant time there. And so I wasn't entirely sure what to expect. I did some reading and researching beforehand. I'd talked to people who were from the region. But to be able to go there and see things that I understood intellectually really helped me to understand them from a more emotional perspective. So to walk along the Corniche in Kuwait and see families sitting and having lunch with each other, to understand that this is what it means to be Kuwaiti, or to see people hanging out on the beach in Oman, that this is really what it means to be Omani. And as political scientists, we often tend to think about politics all the time, but of course, regular people don't necessarily do that. And so to have the opportunity to see firsthand that people really construct their lives around families and the role of family, and not around often what we see represented in the media in the United States, I think was something that I had been intellectually aware of, but actually going to the region really kind of made it, sort of brought it to a new level of awareness. So when I was in the region, I kept a blog, and it was just for friends and family, pretty small group, but I would write about my experiences. And so that was really useful because it gave me the opportunity to take a step back from what I was experiencing every day, what I was researching, and look at it from the perspective of someone who was outside of the region. And so being able to take a step back was really useful for my own research experience. I think the other reason it was so useful was that a day or two after I'd published a blog post, someone who had read the blog would shoot me an email or send me a message, and they'd ask a question about something that I had written or about one of the pictures that I had posted. And so what that blog really did was to open a dialogue about what life is like in the Arab Gulf states for people in the US who otherwise might not necessarily think about the region. And so it really started that conversation and created opportunities to bridge that gap. And now, even though I'm back in the United States, I've tried to continue that by speaking to high schoolers and middle schoolers, by writing policy pieces that really try to sort of bridge those misunderstandings or the lack of knowledge that may exist in the United States about what the Gulf is all about. So social media has sort of been a launching point for me to be able to start to do some of that work.